The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hello everyone, I'm Deborah Hutchison in the Rogers TV studio, and this is your local update. Well, as kids return to school, the automated speed enforcement cameras across Durham region are now operational. Joining us to fill us in and tell us all the information that you need to know about it is Stephen Kemp. Stephen is the Manager of Traffic Engineering and Operations for the region of Durham. Stephen, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and happy to have you help us get the message out to our residents.
Now, you've been warning that these cameras were coming now for quite a while. Now some of them are operational. Let's back up a bit. Why was this initiative necessary?
Yeah, so I'll start. The story really starts back in April of last year when Regional Council approved our Strategic Road Safety Action Plan, which we call Durham Vision Zero. And our Vision Zero plan is about road user safety. And the long-term vision is that that everybody gets home at the end of the day. Zero fatalities and zero injuries on our road system is what we want and what we're striving for. We realize that that's maybe a bit of a longer-term aspirational type vision or target that we're working towards. So we have a shorter term goal, which is a 10% reduction in injuries and fatalities over the first 5-year period of our plan.
I know when we talk to police, they say that when they reach out to the public and they ask about concerns, traffic is always really up there on the list, and traffic safety. How did you go about choosing the locations for these cameras?
Yeah, so there's a couple parts to that. So the first part about choosing the locations, part of it was really defined by the province when the province passed the legislation allowing municipalities to use this equipment. So I think, as most people know, the experience with automated speed enforcement or photo radar in the mid-90s was not particularly well received provincially, and I think the province really wanted to make sure that if they were going to allow municipalities to do this, that it was as transparent as possible, and that it really focused on areas where residents had specific concerns. So the province said that municipalities could use this equipment on their roadways only. So it's not being used on provincial roadways at all. So only allowed on municipal roads. And they went further to say that it can only be used in school zones and community safety zones. So I think the basic premise of that was, listening to the public, I think generally people accept the fact that speeding through a school zone is just an unacceptable behavior that needs to change. And there's a lot more support, I think, for this type of technology in those areas than on some other types of roads, like highways, for example. So the province set those rules, which limited the locations that we had to use the technology. And then the region went further and looked across our whole regional road network to look where do we have school zones, where do we have community safety zones, and then tried to prioritize those sites for implementation.
So if you log online, I mean, you've made you made it very clear where they are going to be. I mean, the list is this long, but to start off with today, it's basically 4 regions, correct? Or 4 areas that we've got them operational.
Yeah, that's true. So the way our program is going to work, we're doing this as a pilot project to test the technology and see measure what impact it actually has. So to start, we are working with 4 mobile automated speed cameras. So these devices can move from location to location. So we have 4 pieces of equipment, and we plan to rotate them through about 23 different sites in the region. Each camera will spend about 1 month at each location.
So you never know when it's going to move, right? So beware.
Yeah, except we don't intend to surprise people with them. That's not our objective. We are going to be very transparent about where they are and where they are going. All of that information is available on our website at durham.ca/ASE, and we're going to continue to update that and let people know where the devices are, in addition to the signs that are in place at each location to tell you that there's a speed camera ahead. So we don't want to catch anybody off guard.
You know, it'll be interesting to see once you move a camera whether the complaints start again, or whether people are not going to be as careful again. Let's talk about what happens if the camera catches you speeding. There are fines, but no demerit points. How's that all going to work?
Yeah, that's true. So there are fines, but because this is a vehicle-based offense and not a driver-based offense, there are no demerit points associated with the ticket. So if you get pulled over for speeding by a police officer at the side of the road, the fine gets issued to the driver, and demerit points also get issued to the driver if warranted. The speed cameras have no information about who was driving the vehicle. The cameras take a photo of the rear license plate of the speeding vehicle, so there's no information about who was driving. The fine gets mailed to the registered owner of the vehicle, and because of that, no demerit points are issued. So in my case, I have teenage sons that are both driving age and often borrow the family car for trips here and there. And if one of them gets a automated speed enforcement camera ticket driving through a school zone, that ticket will be mailed to me, and it'll be up to me and my sons to negotiate how the payment plan might work.
And does the fine differ depending upon how quickly you are going, or how much you're speeding over the limit?
Yeah, the fine does vary. The fine is exactly the same as the fine that you would pay if you received a ticket from a police officer at the side of the road. It's the same section of the Highway Traffic Act that applies. So the fines range at the very lowest level to less than $50 at the low end, all the way up to closer to $1,000 at the very high end.
I would think, though, if you were speeding at a rate where you would warrant a $1,000 ticket, would police not be called in to talk to you?
So because we don't have any information about the driver, that's a bit of a challenge. So when you're pulled over at the side of the road, it's pretty clear who is driving the car. With a speed camera, that is less obvious. So we do have plans in place to deal with any 50 over offenses, because it is treated a little bit differently in in the Highway Traffic Act. If you're caught by a police officer on the side of the road at those speeds, you can lose your car for a few days, and really hefty fines. A speed camera can't impound somebody's vehicle at the side of the road. So we're working through some different processes with the police to manage those types of situations.
And I also have to ask you about, usually when a police officer is pulling you over for speeding, an officer has discretion. A couple of kilometers over, they won't usually give you a ticket. Is this a hard and fast rule? Like, even if you're going 1 kilometer over the limit, you're going to get a fine?
Yeah, so we're not disclosing to the public any information about specific thresholds, similar to how the police don't publicly talk about what those thresholds are. What I can say, though, is that the technology itself, a camera, a computer in a box, has no human ability to be to make exceptions. So it's programmed to work a certain way, and that image is automatically captured. It knows nothing about the type of vehicle, who's in the vehicle, any other circumstances. It's very, very black and white. What happens, though, is that that image gets recorded digitally, and it gets sent to the Joint Processing Center, which is a facility in the city of Toronto that is processing all of the automated speed enforcement tickets issued in the province of Ontario. And a provincial offences officer that works in that facility reviews the image and reviews the evidence that's collected by the camera. And that officer makes a decision on whether or not to lay a charge based on the evidence that they have in front of them.
We've only got about another minute and a half. So I want to ask you, though, if a ticket or a fine is issued and the owner of a car doesn't pay, what happens then?
Yeah, so the ticket arrives in the mail. Just like any other speeding ticket, you have 3 options. You can pay the fine outright. You can request a meeting with a prosecutor at the courts to discuss your case, or you can request a trial. If you have to choose one of those 3 options, if you just flat out don't pay, the regular repercussions would apply. When it comes time to go renew your driver's license, there would be outstanding charges on your account, and it would be problematic for people. So we encourage people to pay or go through the other options that they have available to them.
Okay, so once again, Stephen Kemp is with the region of Durham. Thanks so much for joining us today. Durham.ca/ASE for information on the automated speed enforcement. Stephen, thanks again for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay, stay with us. More to come on Local Update after the break.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Being stuck in your home during this pandemic also means you have a home. Waiting in line for groceries means you have money for groceries. The isolation, being broke and totally scared about what's next. I was feeling that before this crisis. People say we're in this together, but me, I've got no one.
Youth who have aged out of the child welfare system are in danger of falling further through the cracks because of today's crisis. They need your support. Please give today at helpyouthnow.ca.
And welcome back to Local Update. September is Hunger Action Month. Feed the Need in Durham sending out a call to action to help battle food insecurity across the region. Joining us now is Ben Earle, Executive Director of Feed the Need in Durham. Welcome back to the show, Ben.
Thanks, Deb. Nice to be here.
So according to your stats, over 66,000 Durham residents are what you call food insecure. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so these are individuals. This is measured through the Ontario Health Survey and published by the Region of Durham Health Department. And these are individuals who at some point in the last 12-month period from when the survey is done have indicated that they have either had not had enough food at all or have had not had enough nutritious food to meet their dietary needs in the community. So there's a lot of people in our community who meet that criteria and then struggle to, if not put food on the table, put healthy food on the table at the very least.
So we're not talking boxes and boxes of macaroni and cheese. We're talking, the ability to afford meat and vegetables of any kind. We're talking not just about, people who have nothing, but people who also don't have access to those types of foods that can create a balanced, healthy diet that we all need. Especially, I would think, in times of COVID-19, how much has the pandemic played upon that stat, and I would think an increase in number?
Yeah, we have seen an increase in people who are looking for emergency food support, and that's our indicator that we use. And those are individuals who lost work. We know at one point up to 3 million people had been put out of work across the country, and that had definitely impacted our community locally. And we saw a rise in people needing to access emergency food support for exactly those reasons. They just did not have the means to make everything meet at the end of the day, at the end of the month, and needed to seek out support. And we've seen that affect a few ways. One, people's access to food just by sheer not being able to afford it, but also, especially in the beginning of COVID, people not being able to leave to get out to access food that they would normally have access to, whether it's going to a grocery store or a meal program, or even in the case of seniors, accessing meals through senior centers and other places. And kids, in the case of kids, a lot of families rely on breakfast and snack programs to supplement the meals that they give their kids, and those things all stopped in March, and a lot of families and individuals have been struggling since.
And even if you could get out, you couldn't find things. I remember one day in March going down the pasta aisle at Walmart, and there was one bag of pasta left.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems we had. Thankfully, it looks like our supply chain has rebounded quite a bit. We do work with lots of food distributors, and they've done great work to get those things back up and running. But yeah, especially the things that were cheap and easy to afford that form a staple of a diet, like things like rice and pasta and pasta sauce, the things that you need to get to start your meal planning, were not on shelves, and that created some problems for a lot of people in our community.
And I would think a lot of people had to make that incredibly tough decision. Do you feed your belly, or do you secure the roof over your head?
Yeah, we know of a lot of people in our network who had to make those decisions, individuals that we serve, that were already living very precariously. Maybe they had part-time work or weren't working, maybe living off social assistance or pensions or things like that, who had to make those tough decisions when the time came. We know of a few people who've had to move a few times since March that we've served through our network. Not everyone, thankfully. We've had some good response. I mean, programs like the CERB helped keep a lot of people in their homes and help make sure that they had at least something coming in. But that wasn't everybody. And we also know that those programs are not set to remain. So we're thinking about what's next for us as well in our organization or our network.
How much of an increase would you say that you've seen in the demand for what you're able to provide?
Overall, we've seen about a 13% increase since March. At the beginning, that was higher. We saw an immediate run on demand, which was very similar to people, making a run on grocery stores and stuff. People weren't sure how food was going to be secured, so there was a lot of early demand really high. But overall, since March, we've had about a 13% increase in demand for food banks across Durham region. And now the most telling part of that, though, is there's a 50% increase in the number of new people accessing food banks. So that's right. So out of the people who've never accessed a food bank before, we've seen about a 50% increase in that number since March. So it's a lot of new people also looking for emergency food support for the first time in our community.
And are a lot of these seniors, or are they primarily, families with young children, or a real cross section?
The lucky thing is in our community is we do support seniors fairly well. That's not to say that seniors aren't facing a need and that we shouldn't be making sure that they get the support they need. But from a food security point of view, most of the issues for seniors was access and getting out. And we saw an amazing response from so many community groups like the Caremongers and others to make sure that our seniors in our community had access to food, whether they could get out to a grocery store or afford it or not. So there's been some amazing work done to support seniors. In our network, it's been mostly young families, like I said, individuals who maybe their kids access at least one meal a day at school, and now they're home. Parents can't work because they've got to worry about their kids being home and things like that. So we've seen in our network, at least, it's been largely young families and single people who weren't able to work, didn't have paychecks coming in, didn't have those supplemental meals that they usually had access to. So it's been across the board in the community, but in our network, it's been largely those younger families.
Okay, so September is Hunger Action Month. What are you asking the community to do, and how do you want them to respond?
Yeah, so Hunger Action Month it's a national campaign. We're a part of it. We want to promote it locally. The goal is to recognize not only that hunger is an issue for our community, but also to recognize the community supports that we do have year-round, and ask our community to step in and help us respond to hunger. So we've got a few advocacy things planned this month, messaging about what's been going on with COVID. We have our push against hunger, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And we also are doing a lot of work to recognize, especially our volunteers who've been so amazing to help us keep going. Feed the Need hasn't stopped, and our network hasn't stopped since COVID. A lot of charities and organizations slowed down, and we haven't. So we're using this month to recognize all of that. Our community can get involved. If you follow us, go to feedthenedindurham.ca. You can see everything that we're doing on our website. We're asking our community, if they can, to make donations of either food or cash donations. The safest way to do it these days is to make a financial donation. Because you can do that online. You don't have to worry about coming to our facility or any of that. But if you do want to come to our facility and you do want to donate food, which we always appreciate, we've got all the safety protocols in place. We just ask that people reach out to us in advance to let us know so that we can make sure that we are able to receive you safely and protect you and our volunteers and our staff from any possible transmission. Obviously, we're asking everyone to please follow the guidelines they would follow if they're going to any store or grocery store or any other place to donate food. But yeah, you can find all of this information on feedthenedindurham.ca. We appreciate all contributions at this time, either whether financial or food, because we're going to need them as we go forward.
And financial donations, you have real buying power to get more bang for your buck, so to speak, don't you?
Yes, we can. Well, one, we can purchase in volume that allows us to reduce the cost of each individual product. That's one thing. But because we are a distribution network and we are a food hub, we can leverage every dollar donated to distribute $7 worth of food to the community. So that's not just purchasing, that's part of it, but it's also our ability to get more food out to more people who need it. And we do that because we are a collective impact network in our community of over 60 organizations. And we can do everything in such volume that it allows us to be extremely efficient. So your dollar contributed helps us get out a lot more food to people who need it. than you could purchase on your own.
Now, September 22nd is Push Against Hunger.
Yes. Yes. So this is our annual event where we walk from, basically from Oshawa to Whitby. We usually walk from Oshawa City Hall. We walk all the way up to the regional Durham headquarters in Whitby. The route has changed a little bit this year, but it's still the same walk. And we do this to raise awareness, to engage the support of our local governments and our political partners. We always have mayors and elected officials join us on this walk, and who are amazing supporters of us year round. And we take that walk and we walk across the community to raise awareness for what we do, to engage our community. That often the businesses along the way are supporters of us, so we make sure we make stops and recognize the support they've given us year round. And it's just it's actually a fun way for us to get out and show our community that we're here, and show thanks to our community for the great support we get year round. And it's also a way for people to engage and show their support for our mission, which is to respond to hunger in our community.
And Durham region communities across the board, they have really answered your call, even though it is challenging times.
Yes, we can't thank our community enough. Feed the Need, and I know a lot of charitable groups that we work with and that we love and are hugely supportive of at our organization are struggling because they had to close and couldn't do their work to the full capacity that they just really want to do. Feed the Need in Durham has not been in that position. One, we were needed, but two, our community stepped up and has made sure that we've been able to keep doing what we do through food donations and financial support. Feed the Need has been able to continue its mission and will be able to continue its mission because of our fantastic community support. And that starts with our local municipalities, our mayors, our elected councillors, and all the staff from the local municipalities really have shown a lot of leadership in helping us do our job, and are hugely supportive. And through Hunger Action Month, they're doing, and through the push, they are once again sort of raising food on our behalf and really getting their whole staffs involved and their whole councils involved to show support for not just for Feed the Need, but for our community, who may be, and especially those who may be struggling. So we can't thank our community enough for the way they've stepped up to support each other through us at this time.
Now, we only have about a minute and a half left. I want to look into your crystal ball and talk about, your next steps. We could be into a second wave. Numbers are going up. What are your next steps, and how are you planning for the future?
Well, our biggest worry, one, is the second wave, and two, we know that a lot of the economic impacts on families and individuals, we're going to start seeing those more in the coming months. As the reality of people not returning to work sets in, as current programs start to end, we're going to start to see the real economic impact. So that's what we're planning for and have been planning for. We've been investing in our infrastructure in the organization, increasing our truck and transportation capacity. We're also in the process of increasing our storage capacity, especially refrigeration, so that we can be ready to collect and have that food ready for our community when they need it, and ready for the increasing and ongoing demand for it. So we're really focused on making sure that Feed the Need has the food on its shelves and in its warehouse to get to people when they need it and at the time they need it, and really working with our network of 60 organizations to make sure that they're ready to meet any demand, no matter what it is, whether it's a huge spike in demand or it's just an ongoing chronic demand. We're ready, and we're building the processes to do that.
Ben, I've got to stop you there. We're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have to have you back. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison.
Perfect.
Stay safe, everyone.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
There are soldiers in my family. I first joined the Legion to honor their service. Now I volunteer there to be of service myself.